The scent of petrichor and dark roast coffee was my sanctuary. For 5 years, I was just Gabriel, the unassuming Omega who baked pastries. Then the bell above the door chimed. The air suddenly choked with the suffocating scent of cedar and gunpowder. He locked the deadbolt. He found me. The rain was coming down in sheets over West Monroe Street, washing the Chicago sidewalks clean of the day's grime. Inside the daily grind, the world felt safe. It always did. I had spent the last 5 years meticulously crafting this illusion of safety, brick by brick, espresso shot by espresso shot. The cafe was my fortress. The hum of the commercial refrigerators, the comforting earthy aroma of roasted Arabica beans, and the soft jazz playing through the overhead speakers were the walls that kept my past at bay. I was wiping down the steam wand of the espresso machine, relishing the quiet. My teenage barista Chloe had clocked out 20 minutes ago, leaving me to close up shop. The digital clock above the pastry display read 6:45 p.m. 15 minutes until I could flip the sign, lock the doors, and go to the back room to scoop my 4-year-old son into my arms. 5 years ago, I didn't know peace like this. 5 years ago, my name wasn't Gabriel Hayes. I was just Doc, an unbonded Omega, running an underground off-the-books clinic in the shadowy underbelly of Seattle. I patched up mobsters, syndicate hitmen, and street soldiers who couldn't risk walking into a legitimate hospital with gunshot wounds. It was a terrifying life, but it paid enough to keep me fed. That was until the western branch of the Yakuza, a ruthless syndicate that had modernized and monopolized the underground trade on the West Coast, brought in their top enforcer. His name was Leo Kincaid, half American, entirely lethal, and a prime alpha. I saved his life that night. In return, he claimed mine. I shuddered, shaking the memory from my head. I focused on the rhythm of my breathing and the repetitive motion of the damp cloth against the stainless steel. "You're safe now," I reminded myself, tracing the edge of the thick, dark tattoo on the juncture of my neck and shoulder. It was a sprawling design of a raven, meticulously inked, to hide the permanent, jagged scarring of a mating bite. The brass bell attached to the front door let out a sharp, cheerful chime. I didn't look up immediately. "I'm so sorry we're actually closing early today, due to the storm." I called out my customer service voice, polite but firm. "If you need a quick drip coffee, I can pour you a cup on the house, but the espresso machine is off." There was no verbal response, only the heavy, deliberate thud of wet leather boots against the hardwood floor. Then the air in the room changed. It wasn't a subtle shift. It was a violent, atmospheric drop in pressure that made my ears pop. A tidal wave of pheromones slammed into me, thick and suffocating. It smelled of crushed cedarwood, dark ozone, and the distinct metallic tang of blood. My knees gave out entirely. I caught myself on the edge of the counter, my knuckles turning white as my inner Omega screamed in a terrifying mixture of absolute submission and primal panic. No, it can't be. My breath hitched in my throat as I forced my head to turn. Standing in the entryway, water dripping from his tailored charcoal overcoat, was Leo Kincaid. He looked older, the sharp angles of his jaw more pronounced, and a thin, pale scar cut through his left eyebrow, a souvenir he hadn't possessed 5 years ago. His piercing amber eyes, the hallmark of a dominant alpha, locked onto me with the intensity of a predator that had finally cornered its prey after years of starvation. He didn't say a word. He simply reached behind him, his eyes never leaving mine, and flipped the sign in the window from open to closed. Then, with agonizing slowness, he turned the heavy brass deadbolt. Click! The sound echoed through the empty cafe like a gunshot. "Gabriel," his voice rumbled. It was deeper than I remembered, a gravelly baritone that vibrated straight through my chest and settled heavy in my stomach. The way he rolled the syllables of my fake name told me everything I needed to know. He knew who I was. He knew everything. I told you we're closed. I stammered, my voice trembling so violently I barely recognized it. I slowly backed away from the counter, my hand blindly reaching for the panic button installed beneath the register. "Don't," Leo commanded softly. It wasn't a request. It was an alpha command. The sheer force of his pheromones spiked, freezing my arm in place. My biology betrayed me, forcing my body into immediate compliance. "Take your hand away from the counter, little bird." I swallowed hard, my throat sandpaper dry, and slowly raised my empty hands. "What do you want, Leo?" He took a slow, measured step forward. Then another. He moved with the terrifying grace of an apex predator, pausing only to unbutton his wet overcoat and drape it over one of the mahogany dining chairs. Underneath, he wore a tailored black suit that screamed old money and fresh blood. "What do I want?" Leo repeated, tilting his head. He walked up to the pastry display, peering through the glass at the leftover blueberry scones. For 5 years, I tore the West Coast apart. I dismantled 2 rival syndicates. I put bullets in the heads of my own lieutenants because I thought they had orchestrated your disappearance. I burned half of Seattle to the ground, looking for my mate. He slowly dragged his gaze up from the pastries to meet my eyes. The raw, unfiltered possessiveness in his amber irises made my breath catch. "And all this time," Leo whispered, closing the distance until he was standing right across the counter from me. I could feel the heat radiating off his body. "You were baking muffins in Chicago under the name Gabriel Hayes." Silence stretched between us, thick and unbreakable. The only sound in the room was the rhythmic drumming of the rain against the large front windows and the frantic, hammering beat of my own heart. "You shouldn't be here." I finally whispered, my hands gripping the edge of the counter to keep myself upright. The bond, the severed, dormant mating bond that I had tried so desperately to bury, was roaring back to life. My scent glands were swelling, leaking the sweet, distressed scent of vanilla and rain that I knew drove him crazy. I tried to suppress it with scent blockers, but against a prime alpha in this proximity, it was useless. Leo inhaled deeply, his chest expanding, and a dark, dangerous hum vibrated in his throat. "You smell like fear," he observed, his eyes dropping to the raven tattoo on my neck. His jaw clenched a muscle, feathering furiously beneath his skin. "And you covered my mark. You defaced my claim. It's my body, Leo." I snapped a sudden burst of defensive anger piercing through my terror. "You don't own me. You never did. You forced a bond on me while you were half delirious from blood loss. And the moment your father found out you mated a street medic, he ordered a hit on me. My father is dead," Leo stated flatly. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at him, my lips parted in shock. Arthur Kincaid, the untouchable boss of the syndicate, the man who had ordered my execution to keep his son's bloodline pure, was dead. He died 3 years ago. Leo continued, his amber eyes completely devoid of emotion. A tragic hunting accident. A stray bullet. Shame, really. A chill ran down my spine. I knew Leo. I knew the darkness that lived inside him. He killed his own father. He orchestrated a coup to protect a mate who had already run away. "Leo," I whispered, horrified. "I told you I would protect you," Leo said, his voice dropping to a harsh, ragged whisper. He leaned over the counter, invading my space. "I told you that you were mine. But you didn't trust me. You ran in the middle of the night. You took my credit card, boarded a bus to Denver, and vanished like a ghost." He reached into the inner pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a thick manila folder tossing it onto the counter. It slid across the polished wood, stopping inches from my hands. "It took me years to find the cracks in your new identity," Leo explained, watching my face intently. "You were careful. No social media paying in cash, forging a new social security number. But you made a mistake last month. You used a private medical supply vendor out of New York to order specialized pediatric asthma medication. The vendor is owned by a shell company. A shell company that I own. My blood ran cold. The inhalers. Liam had suffered a severe asthma attack last month, and my usual pharmacy had been out of stock. Desperate, I had used an online supplier overnighting the medication. "Open it," Leo commanded, gesturing to the folder. With trembling fingers, I opened the flap. Inside were dozens of surveillance photographs. Pictures of me walking to the local market. Pictures of me unlocking the cafe doors. Pictures of me carrying grocery bags. But there were no pictures of Liam. I had always been incredibly careful, keeping him in the back office during business hours, only taking him to the park at odd hours, making sure he was shielded from the world. "You built a nice little life here," Leo murmured, his eyes tracking the nervous flutter of my pulse at my throat. "But it's over now. You're packing a bag and you're coming home with me. Back to Seattle. Where you belong." "No," I said, the word slipping out before I could stop it. Leo's eyes darkened, the amber bleeding into a terrifying pitch-black abyss. "What did you say to me?" I said no. I took a step back, my maternal instincts overriding my Omega submission. I am not going back to that life. I am not going back to a world of bodyguards, blood money, and constantly looking over my shoulder. You are a monster. Leo. Before I could blink, Leo vaulted over the counter with terrifying speed. Ceramic mugs shattered against the floor tiles as he landed his large hand instantly wrapping around my waist, pulling me flush against his solid chest. The impact knocked the wind out of me. "I am the monster that tore the world apart to find you," he roared, the sheer volume of his alpha voice rattling the coffee cups on their shelves. He grabbed my chin, forcing my face up, so I had nowhere to look but into his furious eyes. "I am the monster that bled for you. You are my mate, mine." I squeezed my eyes shut, tears hot and angry spilling over my lashes. "Let me go." Suddenly a loud crash echoed from the back of the cafe. It came from the employee break room. Leo froze instantly. His head snapped toward the closed wooden door at the end of the hallway. The furious dominance radiating from him shifted into a sharp, calculated alertness. His hand instinctively moved to the holster, hidden beneath his suit jacket. "Who is back there?" Leo demanded, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. My heart completely stopped. Liam. He must have knocked over the stack of empty milk crates while playing with his tablet. "Nobody!" I lied. Panic making my voice shrill. I shoved against his chest with all my might, but it was like pushing against a brick wall. "It's just the old pipes, let me go." Leo's eyes narrowed. His alpha senses were already picking up on the subtle change in the air. "You're lying. Your heart rate just doubled." He let go of my waist, his hand drawing a sleek black Glock from his shoulder holster. "Leo, don't!" I screamed, lunging forward to grab his arm. "Please, there's nobody back there." He shoved me back, not hard enough to hurt, but forceful enough to pin me against the counter. Keeping his gun leveled at the floor, he began walking slowly toward the hallway. "If one of my father's old loyalists found you before I did, and they're waiting in that room—" Leo muttered his thumb, clicking the safety off his weapon. "No, Leo, stop." I scrambled to my feet, sheer terror for my son wiping away every ounce of logic in my brain. I grabbed a sharp paring knife from the prep station and sprinted after him, standing between his massive frame and the break room door. I held the knife up my hands, shaking violently. Leo stopped. He looked at the tiny knife in my hand, then up to my face. The confusion in his eyes was evident. "Gabriel, he said slowly, his voice laced with warning. "Put the knife down. Move out of the way. I won't let you open that door." I sobbed, the tears streaming freely down my face now. "I swear to God, Leo, I will plunge this into my own neck before I let you walk into that room." The air in the hallway grew impossibly still. The rain outside seemed to fade into nothingness. Leo lowered his gun slightly, his amber eyes scanning my terrified face, trying to piece together the puzzle. He took a deep breath, inhaling the air, specifically coming from beneath the crack of the break room door. I saw the exact moment it hit him. His eyes widened in shock. The gun slipped from his grip, clattering loudly against the hardwood floor. He smelled it. Beneath the scent of my vanilla and rain there was another scent. Faint, unformed, but unmistakably familiar. It was the scent of cedarwood and ozone. "Gabriel," Leo whispered, his voice cracking entirely. "What is in that room?" The knife in my hand trembled so violently that the steel blade hummed against the quiet tension of the hallway. Leo's amber eyes remained locked on the wooden door, his pupils dilated to pitch-black voids. The prime alpha inside him had completely taken over, his chest heaving as he pulled in the scent that was undeniably his own bloodline. "Gabriel." Leo breathed, his voice stripped of all its former terrifying dominance. It was hollow, fractured by a sudden, devastating vulnerability. "Tell me, My voice failed me. The paring knife slipped from my sweaty fingers, clattering against the baseboards. I slumped against the wall, burying my face in my hands. The 5 years of lies, the constant running, the sleepless nights, it all came crashing down under the weight of his stare. "He's 4. His name is Liam." Leo didn't speak. He didn't yell. He simply moved forward like a man in a trance, gently but firmly moving my shaking body out of the doorway. He reached for the brass doorknob. His large, scarred hand, a hand that had ended countless lives, a hand that ruled the West Coast underworld, was visibly trembling. He pushed the door open. Inside the break room, sitting on a faded floral rug, surrounded by scattered wooden blocks and an overturned crate of paper cups, was Liam. He was clutching his favorite worn-out plush wolf, his dark, messy curls falling into his eyes. At the sound of the door opening, Liam looked up. My breath caught in my throat as I watched the two of them lock eyes for the first time. It was like looking at a mirror separated by decades. Liam had my nose, but everything else, the sharp cut of his jaw, the thick, dark hair, and most damningly those piercing, luminous amber eyes, was a perfect miniature replica of the dangerous mafia boss standing in the doorway. "Mama," Liam chirped, his tiny voice cutting through the heavy silence. He looked at Leo with innocent curiosity, completely unfazed by the suffocating aura of the prime alpha. "Who is the big man?" Leo dropped to his knees. The heavy thud of his joints hitting the linoleum floor echoed in the small room. He didn't care about his expensive suit, nor the gun he had left discarded in the hallway. He stared at the little boy, tears suddenly pooling in his fierce eyes, spilling over his lower lashes and tracking down his scarred cheek. "Hi," Leo whispered, his voice cracking violently. He slowly reached out a trembling hand, stopping inches from Liam's face, terrified that if he touched the boy, the illusion would shatter. I'm a friend of your mama's." "You have eyes like me," Liam observed, astutely leaning forward to inspect Leo's face. He reached out with his tiny, chubby hand and patted Leo's cheek right over the pale scar. A choked, guttural sob ripped from Leo's throat. It was the most heartbreaking sound I had ever heard, the sound of a ruthless apex predator, utterly broken by love. He gently closed his eyes, leaning his cheek into his son's tiny palm, letting out a purr so deep and resonant that it vibrated through the floorboards. It was an alpha's rumbling purr of absolute devotion, a sound I hadn't heard since the night he marked me. I stood in the doorway, tears streaming down my face. Your father found out I was pregnant, Leo. I confessed, the words pouring out of me like venom being drained from a wound. Leo's eyes snapped open, returning to my face. The sorrow in them instantly warred with a rising lethal rage. He came to my clinic while you were in surgery recovering from the ambush. I sobbed, wrapping my arms around my waist. He brought 2 enforcers. He showed me the blood test results. He told me that an unbonded street rat Omega was unfit to raise the heir to the Kincaid syndicate. He said the moment the baby was born, I would be disposed of, and the child would be given to a proper, high-born Omega to raise. He gave me 1 hour to pack a bag and disappear, or he would kill us both right there. Leo stood up slowly. The atmospheric pressure in the room plummeted again. The pheromones he released were no longer just possessive. They were steeped in absolute, unadulterated murder. Arthur told me you miscarried. Leo snarled, his fists clenching at his sides, his knuckles turning white. He told me the stress of the ambush caused you to lose the pup, and you ran away out of grief and shame. I spent 5 years thinking my child was dead. I spent 5 years thinking you hated me because I couldn't protect our baby. A sickening knot formed in my stomach. Leo, I put a bullet between my father's eyes 3 years ago. Leo stated, his voice dropping to a terrifying, deadly calm. And knowing what I know now, my only regret is that I didn't torture him first. He turned back to Liam, his expression instantly softening. He gently scooped the 4-year-old into his massive arms, lifting him with effortless ease. Liam giggled, wrapping his small arms around Leo's broad neck, instinctively comforted by the cedar and ozone scent of his sire. "I'm sorry, Gabriel," Leo whispered, looking at me over Liam's shoulder. "I am so incredibly sorry for what my family did to you, but I swear on my life you will never run again. You are my mate. He is my son. And I will burn the rest of the world to ash before I let anyone touch either of you." Suddenly the harsh, bright glare of high beams swept across the front windows of the cafe, illuminating the darkened hallway. Leo's head snapped toward the front of the shop. His protective instincts flared, his body instantly pivoting to shield Liam from the direction of the street. "Get your bag," Leo commanded, the emotional vulnerability vanishing in a split second, replaced entirely by the cold, calculating syndicate boss. What's going on?" I asked, panic spiking, as I heard the screech of tires against the wet pavement outside, the twist of the night little bird. Leo said grimly, marching into the hallway and scooping his discarded Glock off the floor with his free hand. "I didn't lock your front door to keep you trapped inside. I locked it to keep them out. Who is them?" I yelled, grabbing Liam's diaper bag from the break room hook and shoving his asthma inhaler into the front pocket. "The Rossi family," Leo barked, checking the magazine of his pistol. "They're a rival syndicate from Chicago. They found out I was flying here without my usual security detail. They've been tailing me since O'Hare Airport. They want my head to destabilize the West Coast territory, and if they find out who you two are, they'll use you as leverage." Crash. The massive floor-to-ceiling front window of the Daily Grind shattered inward. A shower of tempered glass rained down over the mahogany tables and leather booths. The storm winds howled through the open frame, bringing the torrential rain inside. "Get down!" Leo roared, shoving me and Liam behind the thick stainless steel counter of the prep station. A hail of suppressed gunfire erupted from the street. Bullets tore through the cafe, shredding the drywall and obliterating the pastry display case. A stray round hit the massive La Marzocco espresso machine, causing the pressurized boiler to explode in a geyser of scalding water and blinding white steam. I covered Liam's body with my own, pressing us tightly against the floor tiles, my hands clamped over his ears to muffle the terrifying noise. Liam was whimpering, terrified by the sudden chaos. "It's okay, baby, it's okay," I chanted, though I was shaking just as hard. Through the thick cloud of espresso steam, I watched Leo move. He didn't cower. He didn't hide. He stepped out from the cover of the hallway with the chilling calm of the Grim Reaper. 3 men dressed in dark tactical gear stepped through the shattered window frame, stepping over the ruined furniture. Before the first man could even raise his weapon, Leo fired. Bang! Bang! 2 precise shots straight to the chest and head. The first hit man crumpled to the floor dead before he hit the hardwood. The other 2 returned fire, but Leo was already moving, vaulting over the ruined counter with terrifying agility. A bullet grazed his shoulder, tearing through his expensive suit jacket and drawing a spray of dark alpha blood. But he didn't even flinch. He closed the distance in seconds. He grabbed the second man by the throat, using the assassin's own body as a human shield, as the third man panicked and fired wildly. I watched in horrified awe as the mate I had run from the man I had feared systematically dismantled the men trying to kill us. He wasn't just a monster. He was a weapon forged in the darkest corners of the underworld, and right now, he was deploying every ounce of his lethality to protect his family. Leo snapped the second man's neck with a sickening crunch, dropping the body and simultaneously firing 3 rounds into the final hitman. The third man collapsed against the ruined menu board, sliding to the floor in a pool of crimson. Silence descended on the cafe, save for the hissing of the broken espresso pipes and the howling storm outside. Leo stood amidst the wreckage of my sanctuary, breathing heavily. Blood dripped from the graze on his shoulder, mixing with the rainwater, soaking his clothes. He slowly turned to look at us behind the counter. The murderous, feral look in his eyes instantly melted the moment he saw that Liam and I were unharmed. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice rough. "No," I choked out, helping a crying Liam sit up. "We're okay." Leo walked over his heavy boots, crunching on the shattered coffee mugs and broken glass. He knelt beside us, reaching out to stroke my hair, his touch incredibly gentle, despite the blood on his knuckles. "Your cafe is ruined," he noted softly, looking around at the bullet-riddled walls. "I'm sorry, Gabriel." I looked at the destroyed espresso machine, the shattered pastry case, the life I had built over 5 years, completely reduced to rubble in less than 3 minutes. And yet, as I looked back into Leo's amber eyes, I felt a strange, profound sense of relief. The illusion of safety was gone, but the reality of my mate's devotion was staring me right in the face. He wasn't his father. He was just a man who had been bled dry by the world, fighting to keep the only light he had ever known. I reached out my fingers, tracing the bloodied fabric of his shoulder. It was just a cafe. I whispered the mating bond roaring to life, singing with absolute clarity. It was never home. Leo's breath hitched. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against mine, his eyes closing in utter relief. "My private jet is fueled and waiting at O'Hare." Leo murmured, his thumb wiping a tear from my cheek. 50 of my best men are waiting on the tarmac in Seattle. We leave now. We take our son and we go home. I looked down at Liam, who was clinging to Leo's pant leg, his small face buried in the wet fabric. Then I looked at the dark raven tattoo on my shoulder, knowing that beneath it, the scar of his claim still burned hot and true. "Okay," I breathed, wrapping my hand around his. "Let's go home, Alpha." Leo Kincaid smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached his amber eyes. He scooped Liam into his left arm, wrapped his right arm securely around my waist, and together we walked out of the ruined cafe and vanished into the stormy Chicago night. Wow, what a thrilling end to Gabriel and Leo's story. If you loved this intense Omegaverse Yakuza drama and want more heart-pounding mafia romance stories, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your fellow BL fans to help our channel grow, and make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss our next gripping audio drama. Drop a comment below telling us your favorite plot twist. See you next time.